Hey, today's December 7th, 2016. Hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. I myself took a break for a week. So getting back to the cello and try to get reacquainted after sort of a period of not practicing. The cello still sounds pretty good. Actually stayed in tune quite remarkably well. I noticed that I'm not sure if you can see this, I'm using my fine tuners quite a bit, and my C string fine tuner has gone all the way down to as far as I can tighten it here. And I've done this before where I tried to actually tighten the pegs, which was kind of a nervous process to do that for the first time. Just trying to make sure I don't over torque it too much. I also don't want to put a lot of strain on these peg handles. I'm not sure how well these will actually hold up, so I was kind of holding them sort of closer to the stick right here, as I'm also trying to drive it inwards towards this what's this called, the peg box, I believe it's called, I don't remember, in order to get it to stay nice and tight there so that it doesn't slip on me. So I tried that before and it worked for a little bit, but I think it almost like it slid back into place. That's why I had to reutilize a lot of these fine tuners all the way down. One thing I'm also wanting to keep in mind is when I'm adjusting the pegs, I don't want it to drag the bridge at all. I'm not sure if that's common or not. That was something I was concerned about, whether or not as I'm pulling on the peg there, that it will actually pull the strings upwards on the fingerboard, therefore causing the bridge to no longer be perpendicular but trying to edge a little bit towards the fingerboard instead of perpendicular. So I'm keeping an eye on that as well. It looks pretty perpendicular right now, so that's good to hear. But yeah, the weather is getting colder here, but the cello has been staying relatively in tune, so I'm glad about that. So let's start off this practice with coming back to an older song, and I want to do this just so that I can, as I mentioned last time, you come back to an older song, you add vibrato to it, or try to add vibrato to it, and it becomes a whole different song. Or at least the dynamics and the way you feel and the way that it sounds is very different. So I'm going to come back to one of my favorites from Suzuki Cello School Volume 1, which is Rigadoon. And Rigadoon, you can play I can play at a fairly slower pace, such that it also has a lot of quarter notes and some half notes, which are very nice to try to put in that vibrato on. So let's start it off with some vibrato practice on Rigadoon. So even though I played it quite slow, the vibrato is still, it's kind of difficult to activate right away, which maybe is okay that it doesn't activate right away, but I noticed that even on some of the notes, as I'm switching between the D and A string, some of the notes, like I hit the note and I kind of want a vibrato, but my fingers are kind of in a stiff position, such that it's difficult to get that going. So I'll continue to do that at least every practice to come back to one of these previous songs in the Suzuki Cello School repertoire and try to add vibrato to it to see how does it come out, and that'll also give me some additional practice on the vibrato with every practice. So now I'm going to come back to Suzuki Cello School Volume 2 and where we left off on song number 2, Maytime. I've been working on this piece for the last couple of weeks, or last few weeks, and trying to really understand some of those slurs so that we have double down bow followed by 2 up bows, and trying to get them to be a little bit more smooth. There's some interesting passage in here which could be a little bit tricky, and I'll point them out as I go, but I don't remember exactly where I left off last time, but I'm going to go ahead and try to run through this piece, and we'll see where we are here. It starts off with an up bow. Couple of spots, at least a few spots in there, quite sloppy, and I'm not really paying attention to which string I'm on, so you hear some of those where it's not quite, the note itself doesn't ring out itself. So let's try to slow it down and take it a few measures at a time. So let me start off the first line here and see where we are here. So again, it starts off up bow on the G string. Dun, 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 dun. Again, up bow again, similar passage here, but quite slightly different. Dun, 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 dun. And then here is where it's different. Dun, dun. It goes dun, dun. Oh, sorry. Let's see here. So this is a slur, open string on a D string, dun, but it's denoting the second note in that slur with a down bow again. So I think it's intended to go down, down on that slur, even though it's slurred. So it's almost like, why did they even put the slur in there? I think it's to indicate that I'm going in the same direction, but instead of just extending that with a quarter note and a what is that? An eighth note, a quarter note and an eighth note. Instead of just extending that to be a longer note, it wants you to sort of break that up in between a quarter note and an eighth note. Oh. So that's one interesting bit here. I'm not sure if I mentioned that in the last video. But let's continue on. The passage after this, we'll go starting from the D string. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, I'm a little bit off here. And then the last passage. Dun, 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 dun. The tricky part in this last passage is this part here that goes coming from the A string. Dun, dun, dun. It goes dun 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 dun. That's how the whole passage goes, but it goes dun 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 dun. That part between the D string fourth finger. This is all down bow. D string fourth finger dun, to open A dun, back down to D string fourth finger. Dun. And I find that tricky is because that's all down bow is slurred, so it would go dun dun dun. But in order to do that, I want to. I feel like the correct way to do it is to continue to hold down on the D string fourth finger as I come across to the A string. Oops. And again, the tricky part here is trying to keep that tunnel finger able to hold down that D string without touching the A string. I have a difficulty in, especially when I'm utilizing the weak pinky for the fourth finger, to hold down that fourth finger enough such and not come over to touch the A string. And you hear that it doesn't come out very clear, and it's because part of my finger is touching a little bit too close to the A string, so that when the A string needs that space to oscillate, it's actually touching up against my finger. So that's the tricky part there. And as I, having practiced in over a week and having a weak pinky, certainly does not help. So let's try that last part one more time. It goes, starting from the open A, goes. Dun, 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 a little bit off again. When I'm playing it sort of at full force, even though sometimes I touch the A string, I actually don't hear it as much, even though I can feel it with my fingers. I can feel the A string oscillating and touching up and vibrating up against the tips of my finger as I'm on the D string. So sometimes you can sort of fudge through it a little bit, but ultimately I think the sort of the true measure of success here is to be able to get that good tunnel finger on the D string. So let's go ahead and try it at full force and see if I can sort of fudge through some of these mistakes. I don't always want to just sort of gloss over them, but sometimes playing it at tempo and playing it to a full volume actually makes things a little bit easier. I find sometimes it's sort of almost like you get into a rhythm, and the rhythm sort of carries you through, even though there might be some sort of nuances which I'm not getting very, very correct. So let's give this a try. This song is denoted in the beginning con moto, and I believe that's with motion. I believe that's what that means. So yeah, with motion. This is a Mozart. So let's give Mozart some motion. difficult piece, that difficult measure here for P. Yeah, still difficult, and I think I'm gonna need more practice on this song. Well, we'll see where we are next week with this song, and I think some of these next things coming up here are gonna be pretty exciting. I see second position coming up, so I haven't really gotten out of first position much yet. So looking forward to learning how to do that second position. That's a major milestone I feel like is coming up.